Hi everybody, this is your host Steve from Scale Model Kit Review. Up next is the Eaglemoss Build Your Own DeLorean from Back to the Future, Issue 9. Here's the magazine for the Eaglemoss Build Your Own Back to the Future DeLorean Issue 10. And here are the parts that come with this. It's a very large box presenting our frame for the DeLorean. We get our screwdriver and some other parts. I'll go ahead and take this out of the box. We'll get a closer look of the parts as they look inside of the bubble wrap. We will go ahead and get a closer look at the parts taken out of the bubble wrap. We'll assemble this issue and we'll also look at the magazine. I'll be right back. Let's look at the magazine for issue 10. And right away when you open up we can see a breakdown of all the parts we received with this issue. Table of contents on the left. And the first thing we get into is we are starting to assemble our chassis and the suspension components along with the steering. So there's a lot that's going to be installed here within this issue. Connecting the wheel hubs up front, the front plate and steering. The anti-roll bar, or what we call the sway bar. The wheels. And the completed assembly, so there's a lot going on here. Next we look at another section of the production diary of the filming of the Back to the Future. Looks like we get 3 pages of that. Then we have the Biff Boys. A couple of pages there. And then lastly we have Doc's model, and they talk a little bit about the models that Doc Brown was dealing with in the movie there. And then they give us a preview of what we get in the next pack, which will start with issue 11. And there you have it, that's the magazine. So like I said, if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the Eaglemoss Back to the Future DeLorean. It's readily available to US subscribers. Don't miss out on this. This is super fun and it makes a super cool display model. If you want information on it, I put a link below in the description on how you can subscribe to this fantastic model. Anyway, let's get on to the build. Here's a close-up of all the parts we get with issue 10, mainly the frame assembly, and it comes complete already. There's no assembly required for it. They've actually have already assembled some of the stuff for us. You can see inside here there's some screws already installed, some side pieces here that they already put on for us. Everything else is primered black, like a semi-gloss black, and it's pretty cool. We also get another screwdriver. And that's so because, you know, when you're putting a lot of metal screws into metal parts, it has a tendency to dull the tip of your screwdriver. So it's great that they gave us another screwdriver at this point of the build. And we get some more screws. We get some more AM screws, some AP screws, some BM screws, some DM screws, and some new screws here, which are some GM screws. So let's go ahead and start assembling this. We need to gather a lot of parts from previous issues, and we'll start with the first step here in a second. Another screwdriver. Now this is not the same screwdriver we got in the first issue. This screwdriver is a little larger than the other one. If you look closely at the tips, you can see that this is larger than the first one we received. So that's very cool. I'm glad we received 2 different size screwdrivers for this build. Great job, Eaglemoss. Great job. the first part of this build we are going to connect the wheel hubs. Now in order to do that, you want to make sure you have the right size going to the right location. And in order to determine that, look at your wheel hub and look where the brake caliper is on the back side. So you want to have the brake caliper on the back side, and you want to have your tie rod end on the front for both. Okay, so we can see that's how they're actually proportioned to how this is going to be installed here. Okay, so first thing we need to do is we need to turn this over, and we're going to have to reverse these. This one will go over here and this one over here, and then they'll simply just mount down on top where you have two screw holes for that side. And the same will be on the other side. I'll be right back. Now we have received a lot of screws with this build. So what I've done temporarily is I've grabbed a pillbox and I've put my bags of screws in each bin. So you can see I have them arranged alphabetically, and I'm actually keeping the screws in their bags so I don't get them confused with each other. So I don't get the AM and the AP screws confused with each other. So this way I have better track of my screws and they're not just rolling around in a storage box or in the box where the kit came in. So that's that. And it looks like we'll be using BM screws for this. We'll be using BM screws for this. So I think what I'll do is I'll take and give myself some support here underneath the frame, and then we'll begin with the build here in just a second. I've gathered all the screws we need, which are the BM screws. We'll need 4 of them to do both the wheel hubs. Now remember, the top of the wheel hub is where this A-arm is. Okay, so that's going to have to go over like this because we got everything turned over right now. We're looking underneath, and we're just going to line up the holes there and install those screws. These are going to be going into metal, so they might be a little more difficult to thread in. With that, you can have the option of adding just a little bit of lubricant to the holes so that that way they cut in a little bit easier. And what I like to use for a lubricant, just as before, is just a little bit of lip balm. And I'll put some on a cotton swab. Just to put a little bit in each hole, and we will go ahead and install these wheel hub or axle assemblies. I'm going to hold the back side a little bit while I get these lined up. I'm just not going to screw them in tightly. I want to just get them started. I'll get the other one started. Thread it in very nicely. And just tightening them down. And there we go. Perfect. You can see the screws there are in. So we got to do the same thing on the other side. So once again, we're going to use BM screws on the other side, and I'm going to put a little bit of lubricant on the holes there where they mount. Doesn't take much. Once again, make sure we have the top situated where the bottom's showing on both of these now. And we'll get the screw started. There's one. And there's number two. We'll tighten these down. And there we go. And there we go. We've got both wheel hubs installed. Let's move on to the next step. Next we will install the front plate, and we're going to be using 3 AM screws. And they will simply go down into the mounting holes here that are provided. There's 3 pre-drilled holes. You can see one right there, one right there, and one right there. There's some extra holes there, but we're not using them. We'll simply line up the plate to those holes, just like such, and then we will install the screws. I'm going to do the center one first. And I'm just going to go through the plate first, line it up to the first hole where I can kind of fill the detent of the hole, just like that, and then screw it in. Okay, I'll leave it a little loose, and I'll do the next 2. And one more. And there we go. All 3 are tight. Next we're going to assemble the steering assembly, and in this case these will simply slide from underneath through these openings here. Like that. And like that. So these are underneath, and it looks like they mount on there and on there. So if you look closely, once I slid them in through from the bottom in these openings, they mount on here and on there. We'll be putting GM screws for this. I think it doesn't hurt to put just a little bit of lubricant on those. GM screws are very similar to the FM screws. Very tight, but with the lubricant it helps. we'll get the other side started. There we go. Everything appears to be movable still. Whoops. So I got that snagged in underneath there. So I'm going to take that out and I need to get it up on top. You guys see that? I need to get that on top. So let me remove that again and try this again. There we go. Free it up right there. Make sure it's free to move. And then we'll put the screw in. Make sure it's tight. Okay. The next thing we do is we got to hook up the ends of the steering mechanism. So we'll turn it over, and you can see these rod ends go on just like that. And this time we use DM screws on those. I'm going to put a little lubricant on these too. Don't want to go too tight with it. We'll do the other side. Same thing. There we go. Everything turns. Just like it should. Everything turns just like it should. I'll turn it over. And you can see everything rotates nicely here. And let's get on to the next part, which is to install the bottom plate. So we'll turn it over for that. And it looks like the bottom plate simply matches up with the frame. And we'll flip it over. This is where we'll actually install 4 screws, which are DM screws also. These screws will all be recessed. Get the first one in. We've got 2 holes here. We put DM screws in and 2 more up here on top. Secure it from the bottom. So we can get these screws in. this side, same thing. And we got two more on top that have to go in. And one more. And there we go. Plate is fully installed. And lastly, we install, besides the wheels will be next. We will install anti-roll bar, or the sway bar. Next we will install the anti-roll bar, or what we call the sway bar. And they simply get inserted here in these holes. There's a hole here, and there's a hole here on this side. Now remember, the sway bar is made of plastic, and it's going to get screwed down on top here. So we insert that there, if you can see it, and we did it on the other side. And at the same time, we're going to install 4 AP screws. And this is plastic going into plastic, so we want to be careful we don't over tighten these. At least get one of them started. Let's try the other end first. There we go. That one's going in good. Screw it in till it's snug. Same with this side here. Put the front in first. Going in just fine. Snug. Front on the other one. Perfect. And one more. And there you have it. All are in, and looks very nice. You can see where the sway bars go in. And from this angle, how they're mounted, and where they go in. That was a lot of fun. Now the next thing we do is we install the wheels. Both front wheels that we happen to have. I'll be right back. So the last part for issue 10 is installing the wheels. Now you can see we installed the hubcap, and remember we had a washer tucked in behind that, so we need to pop that out. That's what I'm going to use this old paper clip for, to reveal the washer and the hubcap. Put those aside. And we are using a GM screw for this. So of course, before I put the screw in for the hub, I want to go ahead and put a little lubricant on the hub there where the screw goes into. Same thing on the other side. And we'll line up the wheel to the hub, just like such. And we'll insert the washer. And the screw until it's snug. That's good. And we'll put the hubcap on it. There we go. Now we'll do the other side. Put the wheel down on it, just like that. Put the washer in. Put the screw in. And lubricating the holes really helps. There you go. And we'll put the hubcap on. There we go. And here we go. We have both front wheels and tires installed. The complete front suspension. Everything looks fantastic. You can see how everything looks with the wheels and tires on. And this completes issue 10. Build the DeLorean Back to the Future. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to this. I put a link below in the description. With that, thanks for watching, everybody. Happy modeling. Take care.